I'm Forbes Shannon. This is the Late Night News. Here are the week's top stories. Republican candidate Carly Fiona said that her medieval history degree from Stanford will help her fight ISIS. Doesn't seem to make much sense, but now we all understand why she thought fighting the California drought was best with a federally dug moat. Black bears are taking over Tallahassee, Florida. It's not the worst thing that's happened to Florida. Speaking of bears, a man was almost eaten to death by a bear until he remembered that they have an extensive gag reflex, so he shoved his whole arm down the bear's throat. Doesn't work on mid-lab skanks, though. Arizona State ice hockey beat Alaska. The state that lives on ice lost to the state that doesn't even have enough ice for tailgates. Ice devils. Burger King introduced a new black burger that was making people poop green when they eat it. I don't see what the big deal is. I always poop green after Burger King. NBA All-Star Lamar Odom was found unconscious in a brothel last week, with major news coverages saying he was a reality star as opposed to an NBA star. Which is understandable because that's what they do for Kim Kardashian as opposed to calling her a porn star. People were shocked that Lamar Odom was found in a brothel. Clearly it wasn't the first time he was in a brothel. Where do you think he met Chloe? Chuck E. Cheese is now serving booze. This was the final barrier between Chuck E. Cheese and real casinos. IKEA is now selling movable walls. Everyone else calls them doors, but they're Swedish. A high school quarterback was suspended after touching the center inappropriately. It must have been a Catholic school. The city of Tempe is now introducing their own version of Running of the Bulls, but this time it is with women roller derby participants with Nerf bats. And despite what our writers say, that is not a fetish of mine. North Korea said that they can counter any U.S. threat. Really? Who's going to counter the U.S. threat of LeBron James in the paint from North Korea? A BYU student was hit by a deer on her way to class. The deer could not get her headphones untangled out of his antlers on his way to work. Ben Carson said that if the Jews were armed, they could have prevented the Holocaust. What also would have prevented the Holocaust is if the Nazis were armed. A town in Minnesota has now made it a hate crime to assault a police officer. Just to be clear, it's also an assault charge to assault a police officer. The top line that received the most response in online dating in Chicago was, "What's your go-to Mario Kart character?" If she says Bowser, run. The top dating line in New York was, "How was your 2004? Chill, I was in 5th grade. Justin Bieber was seen nude in the Caribbean. When he addressed it with People magazine, he said, "That was shrinkage for me," which makes sense since he's been ice cold since the Boyfriend album. Speaking of shrinkage, here's Lauren with the weather. Lauren!
Thank you, Forbes. Well, as we find ourselves coming into the middle of October, you'll see a slight change in the winds. Guys, it's cuffing season. This, of course, refers to the time of year where everyone shacks up in time for the holidays. This comes from an intense need to not be alone and also to avoid your grandma's bullshit about finding a nice boy for the 7th year in a row. I tried, Grandma. Kind of. Nevertheless, if you find yourself single at this time of year, there's no need to worry. Experts estimate that you actually save roughly 30 to 40% of your income if you are single. Or if you're a cheap asshole like my ex. Fuck you, Luke. Anyway, speaking of cheap assholes, back to you, Forbes.
Thank you, Lauren! That's it for the Late Night News. I'm Forbes Shannon. This was the week's top stories. Woo!